Welcome back and happy Tuesday here in New York. I told you this week I was going to have an incredible guest, and she is here. So this is Tech Tuesday, and one thing that we have not done yet is talked about the evolution and the role of a chief technology officer. So I thought, who could be this person? No one better than my friend Minerva, who was the first ever CTO of our beautiful city of New York. This is Minerva Tantoco, and outside of being the first CTO of New York City, she was also the CTO at Merrill Lynch and UBS, and on top of that, you hold 4 patents on intelligent workflow. So just a little bit smart to say the least. So Minerva, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Scarlett.
As always, a pleasure. So we're going to talk about the role of the CTO and kind of technology. So from your perspective, you've been in the space and seen it from so many different angles. Government, private, big banks, startups. How has the role of the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, changed over time?
Well, initially I was actually the first CTO at a division of Gray Advertising back in the late 90s when we thought that the internet might have some impact on advertising. And so what evolved from there was really the intersection between business and technology. It's like the Venn diagram. And it truly was a sense of how can we take a business-driven approach to do technology transformations across multiple industries. And that's pretty much been the role since the late 90s. I think it's very different from, say, a CIO role, which was really about managing the technology, infrastructure, and networks, which are absolutely critical. Running the servers, running the data centers, which I had also done, and wiring up, web access to companies. But this was much more business-facing in that sense. The technology that actually touches customers and generates revenue, which really only came about with the web and e-commerce.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time with startups of all sizes, but certainly the earlier you go, one of the hardest resources to find is a CTO, because it really can be that differentiator when you go to get that big round of funding or anything else. And so you have been CTO of some big banks, and then of course some of the more recent stuff that you've done. In financial services specifically, where do you believe tech will have the biggest impact moving forward? Is it on the front end? Is it on the back end? Is it a mixture of both? Like, what does that look like?
I think there's been an evolution from front to back. So, the early tech transformations of financial services really had to do with the web and putting things on mobile devices. And now what we're seeing is a front-to-back transformation, which includes updating your core systems, updating how payments work, sort of the unsexy guts of financial services, which really has remained unchanged for decades. Right? A lot of banks still run on COBOL and mainframes. And so that's truly exciting to me, this sort of front-to-back. At the same time, you have an opportunity to refactor how those technologies work. And we've also had the advent of automation, artificial intelligence. We have, the ability to use those technologies to truly transform the business processes themselves. And what I really like about it is that by automating, you can make things more compliant, more secure, and at the same time less expensive. And that means you can offer more financial services at a lower price to more people. So the true opportunity is sort of the democratization of tech and the democratization of financial services for more people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. So coming from your lens, there's a debate that I would say you hear, are banks technology companies? Are they data companies? What would you say in general you would classify banks as? Is it either of those?
Well, I think some folks will say, we're not a tech company, we're a bank. I think, especially if you're a digital bank, that distinction doesn't matter anymore because you don't have branches, you don't have ATMs, you have software, and you have applications in the cloud. And so you can say that the delivery of those services is really what defines, the bank, or you could say it's the services themselves, right? So to me, it's really not about being a bank or a tech company any more than, advertising is now a tech industry,
right?
But it's still advertising,
right?
And so when you look at it that way, all it means is that the delivery is different. The services are the same. You're taking deposits, you're making loans, you're offering payments, you're exchanging foreign currency. Those services are financial services, regardless of how you deliver them.
No, absolutely. So seeing the world that you have from all these different angles, what are you most excited about for the future of financial services?
Really, it is the automation side of things. I think we've seen that slow roll through many different phases. And I've looked at a lot of really promising technologies in the cybersecurity space, anti-money laundering, the know your customer, and there's some interesting uses of encryption and blockchain and all of those spaces. And I think the idea that we can actually use technology to protect privacy. I had a discussion recently when someone said privacy is dead, and absolutely not. It may be dead for some of us who have put all of our data out there.
Yeah.
But it's not dead from a regulatory perspective. Certainly not for my daughter or her daughter. Because it's our job to protect that privacy, and so we can actually use that same technology to protect that privacy and make sure that everyone controls their data.
Fascinating. Oh, I could just listen to you all day. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Always love catching up with you. So to hear the whole video, please go to YouTube. And as always, click the link below and you can see the full interview with Minerva, more about her background. We didn't talk about everything. There's some other interesting things for you to read through. And until next week, signing off.